So I'm just starting to build the wheels for the Swiss Cross light bicycle. It's a nice product. I'll do more of a review on it, but you get a user manual, which this is the PDF version I printed out from my shop. I got the original up in the office. Black brass nipples. They give you 2 extra nipples, an extra spoke. Anyway, carbon tie hubs, CX-Ray spokes, light bicycle, tubular rim. It's a 25 profile, 25 external dimension. We'll see what it looks like. Should be fun. And this is after initial tensioning. You can see the spokes are quite loose still. Barely. Well, I've tightened the nipples down to the end of the threads on all of those. No threads showing. That's where it's at. So it's got some tension on it, but enough so it's not doing this anymore. That's all. And there's some obvious adjustments that need made. It's not horrible, but there's some hop. The wheel's not round. It's not too bad, but it's definitely there. I haven't put the gauges to it yet, so this is just kind of eyeballing it. That's not bad. Tension's good. There's no dishing error. It's right on. I just have to straighten out the wheel side to side. Some wobble and some hop. I'm done with the front wheel almost. That gauge is at the farthest about 3 millimeters. Not even 3 millimeters, it's about 2 millimeters. So I got about 2 millimeters of hop in that one spot. So there you can see the hop and the wobble at the same time. Seems to be occurring at the same point on the rim. We'll fix that. This is what it looks like after final adjustments and stress testing. Stressing the spokes, I mean. And that's about a 1 millimeter gap between that feeler and the rim. Not much there to see where we are. See if I can get a good view on that. This has not been fine-tuned. It's just got the spokes in there. I'm trying to get the dish correct. I still need to move this rim over here about 2 millimeters. Spoke tension is kind of even around, but obviously you can see it. Fine tuning. Radial laced on the non-drive side, 2 cross on the drive side. Now the drive side hub flange is designed so it's kind of idiot proof. You put the spoke in there and it's going to go to where it's going to go, because it's not just, it's kind of a 6 millimeter chunk of metal there. The head there. It exits there. There's only one place it's going to go. Bing, there. And then the other side of this here has a entry hole for the inside spoke. Okay. So, and contrary to crossing patterns normally, like, because the spoke holes in the flange aren't drilled this way, they're drilled pointing to the rim. Well, there's no inside outside spoke head. It's just a outside spoke and an inside spoke, and there's no weaving of the spoke, okay, behind. Normally it would weave behind there and go to the rim. I don't know if that's very clear, but in this case you can see that there's the first cross, and that spoke is on inside to this spoke. Here's the second cross, and that spoke is on the inside of that spoke again. So it's really idiot proof. You just thread the spokes and they're going to go to the hole on the rim. The only thing you have to decide about is where you want the first spoke to go. And on this rim, and most rims, this is an offset rim. So the short arc points this way, and Light Bicycle puts a sticker on there so you can't miss it. It's pointing that way. And so it's also next to the first hole. So and this is the valve hole here that I've just marked, so when I'm working on the wheel I know where it is. It's easier to see. So the first spoke is going to go to the first hole to that side where the sticker is. Where that spoke comes out of on the hub, I don't think it really matters because it's radial, and none of this matters over there either, because however you set this side up, the spokes are going to go to a hole on the rim. There's just no mistaking that. So the point is, do you want to be able to see the label from the spoke hole? And there's the spoke hole, and there's the label. So that's what I did, is I just set it up so I can see the label on the hub. And that's just a cosmetic thing. It doesn't make a bit of practical difference. Purely cosmetic. Now the other thing that Roger Musson says you want to do, that's another aesthetic consideration, is a lot of times makers of wheels would have their sticker on one side or the other of the rim. And he has a idea about lining that sticker up so you're looking at it, I think, from the right side of the wheel, right side being drive side, correct? I don't know if I got that right, but I think so. So anyway, the other peculiarity of this hub is to get the spokes in on the non-drive side, you have to take the axle out because there's no room to thread the spokes in there. The spoke heads are inside here, and this is the bearing preload carbon tie. That's kind of nice. It comes with a bearing preload, which you can see the adjustment grub screw there. And that's the end cap that the preload is part of. So you have to take the axle out to thread the spokes through there, and then you put the axle back in. You have to get that adjusted before you start tightening the spokes, because if this isn't adjusted and you get it all set up so that there's no dishing error, and then you go and measure the dish after you get it all tightened and you find out that the axle hasn't been properly remounted and tightened, you're going to get a dishing error. So that's something to be on the lookout for. Otherwise, it's kind of idiot-proof here. Radial spokes, the first spoke will go here because that first spoke has to be on the short arc side of the offset rim. So on the rear wheel, the short arc side has to be the non-drive side. So it'll go to the non-drive side. And then on the front wheel, it's the reverse. The short arc goes toward the drive side. Anyway, this wheel hasn't been adjusted yet. You can see there's top and lateral, quite a bit of lateral play. So it hasn't been adjusted at all. I've just tried to get the dish correct and the spoke tensions equal. Now the other thing is, these spoke tensions on the non-drive side, on the rear wheel, are going to be about 70% as of the tension you give to the drive side spokes. So my goal is, I'm going to get these uniformly tight, and I'm going to measure the spoke deflection with that. And I want all of these on this side to be somewhere around 2.3 to 2.4. And then all of these on the non-drive side about 1.3 to 1.4. Now, how do you do that? Well, mainly what you're doing is, once you get the spokes in and you do an initial tightening of every spoke around the rim, check the dish, make sure it's kind of within a couple millimeters one way or the other, because you're going to check the dish several times while you're doing this. The tightness of the non-drive side spokes is really a function of tightening the drive side. These have to be where you put your attention when you're tightening the wheel. Once you get an initial tightening and they're basically all at the same level, then you're going to start tightening all of these spokes on this side, on the drive side. And as you do that, you're pulling the rim this way, all right? But you're also tightening the spoke tension on the non-drive side as you're pulling it this way. The only thing you have to do is keep the dish correct. So I'm going to pull these over. That's what I've done. These will get tightened more and more as I pull the non-drive spokes over. the rim will go over that way. So that means you're going to create a dishing error. So eventually you're going to have to then tighten the non-drive side spokes. And you do that alternately to keep the dish proper, but also to get these tightened up. So what you're going to do is probably do a full turn of the wrench on the drive side and a half turn of the wrench on the non-drive side, because you can't get these too tight. Anyway, I'm kind of at a point where there's about 2.1 millimeter spoke deflection on the non-drive side and about 1.1 on the, 1.1 on the non-drive side and 2.1 on the drive side. Drive side, non-drive side. So that's where I'm at. Now, the dish is pretty good right now. It's not right on, but it's real close. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give all of these spokes on the drive side a turn. I'm going to measure the spoke deflection. I can also use that plucking. I'm not getting a good sound because you can hear it on the drive side, not on the drive side. That one's a little bit tighter. The last one, it was a higher note. That's a little bit lower. That's about the same. That's higher. That means it's tighter. So anyway, I'm plucking some of the spokes on the non-drive side, so you're getting different sounds. They're going to be a lot lower. You can hear that. Boom, boom. And then drive side, higher. Anyway, yeah, that's my project now. I want to get this finished today. There's a tiny little wobble there, but I think it's more an issue with the tiny little hop at that exact same spot. Tiny little hop where it closes in on the gauge just a hair, and at that same point is where the little apparent wobble is. But I think what it is, when the wheel edges down toward the radial gauge, the clearance shifts marginally because this rim is not perfectly straight up and down. It goes like this, small amount. Anyway, that's as good as I can get it. There's a minor amount of dishing error. I can keep fiddling with it, because what I still have to do, I can do whatever I want. But, yeah, why? That's really good. All of the spoke tensions are pretty equal. I wrote them down here. Actually, what I wrote is spoke deflection. And on the drive side, we've got an average of 242.9. And on the non-drive side, 135.9, which is pretty much right on what I wanted to do. Around 240, 230, 240. But I checked another wheel that's made with these spokes, the same hub, and a carbon rim that I have. And actually, there's a whole lot more variation on the wheel that Far Sports built and sent me than on this one. The lowest deflection is 2.29. And the greatest deflection is 2.53. So that's not much. And over here, 126, 143. So it's pretty good. It's, as they say, good enough for government work. You want to make it perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. But that's pretty damn good, and I think this is pretty damn good. Anyway, that's the rear wheel for the Ritchey. The front wheel is built, but what I didn't do properly is when I took the axle out to thread the spokes into the hub, put the axle back in, tightened it, I didn't do it properly. So I got the whole thing built and it's really nicely done. But when I realized the axle wasn't set in properly tight, and I tightened it down, I had addition error. So I'm gonna redo that one tomorrow. That's just one of the pitfalls you do when you're new at something. Okay, well, the front wheel has been redished, so it's right on. And I checked the spoke tension again. After dishing it, I had to do some adjustments here, but you can see there's nothing going on there. Radial alignment is good. And that's less than half a millimeter gap in there. It's really hard to see it, but there it is. It's my wiggling hands really that are making it look like it's wobbling more than it really is. I mean, there's one little place in there where it's coming a little bit close to that feeler gauge, but again, nothing's perfect, but I can get rid of that, and I'm going to right now. Front wheel is done. It looks good. I'm ready to put some tubular tires on there. Back wheel is done. And it's looking good too. That was a learning process there. That hub is an interesting thing. I'm sure it's pretty standard the way they have the straight pull spoke flange on the drive side. It's kind of idiot proof, but on the other hand, it was new, so I had to play around with it and figure out spoke tensioning. And it was fun to do it.